So, welcome to Astrology Alert, Kevin. So nice to have you on.
Thanks for inviting me. Good to be here, Andre.
So, what have you been tuning into lately in the crazy political world and the crazy world we're in?
A
What have
lot,
you been
hasn't it?
watching?
Um, I do feel like lately, like I've been really busy with readings and shows, and I think the universal energy has been a bit heavy. Um, I was kind of feeling something happening with Trump towards the end of this month, which we just saw that yesterday with the New York case. And I feel like more indictments coming, and I don't know if it's for Trump, but it feels like it's January 6th related, maybe to some of the closer people around him coming up here soon.
Hmm. Well, that would be nice. Yes, more.
Yeah,
Please, more.
yes. I don't know. September's just felt really kind of heavy. We're almost through it though, so but maybe even two. We have the full moon coming up, and then we have an eclipse in like 2 weeks. So
Hmm.
energy just feels kind of all over the place.
Yeah, and also there's a Pluto station early next month, and those
Mm,
usually correlate with things getting, dicey, dark. It wouldn't surprise me if it's related to the government shutdown because I don't know
mm,
if those House Republicans have a way out because they can't seem to agree, and I think McCarthy believes that if he brings the Democrats in, it'll be even worse.
mm.
So I don't know, but to me it feels like it may have to shut down for a while before things recover, and that's gonna be in the news, as a
Of
result.
course.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, I'm feeling I was feeling at first like we were going to avert it, and that was probably about 6 weeks ago. But the energy's definitely shifted, I think, a little bit. I'm feeling like a short shutdown. But I think what they'll end up doing is they'll probably pass one of those I don't know what it's called, one of those extensions to give them a little bit more time to get their stuff together. But yeah, it's gonna be a circus in the house.
yeah, yeah, no. So that's
I almost
that's
feel like McCarthy's not going to have a choice. Like he's going to have to go to Democrats to get something passed. But I don't think he's ready or willing to do that just yet. And I've been saying since he got in there, I didn't think he'd be speaker for the um, that whole term. So could be his undoing working with Democrats.
yeah. Well, I don't know what the cause will be 100%. What I know is that from here to the new year, it's really dicey because he's on his Saturn return, second Saturn return, and
Hmm.
Saturn return for anybody is always, it tilts to the challenging side. And then if you have something that complicates it at birth, where the Saturn is, because it returns to that same spot. So he's got this alignment, he's got a square to the moon very tight.
Mm.
And so that's pretty tricky. He may not survive. He may end up getting bounced. And
When is that in his chart?
well,
Is it now?
no, he's born with it, and then he experienced the first pass in the spring, in March, April, and then the planet moves forward. And now it's backtracking and running over it again. But this time, not only is it there, it's not as quick moving. It's a station of the planet. So when a planet
Mm.
it is November, in late November,
Okay.
Saturn is very strong. So the risks to him increase during a period like that. And this is kind of painted for that because these situations, it's like he's in the corner. He doesn't know which way to turn because whichever move he makes, someone gets upset, or if it's not Trump, it's the whoever, the five radicals, and then the more moderates are upset because they're worried they're going to lose their seat. So it's chaotic. It's
Well, that's
quite
what
chaotic.
happens when you give up all of your power to get the speakership, right?
Yeah,
Can I just say real quick, Andre? I know I'm speaking for your subscribers too. I'm not the best with astrology. It's kind of like another language to me, but I really enjoy the way that you explain it, um, so that I can understand it. And I'm sure other people feel that way too. You do a
oh well,
really good
thank you,
job.
thank you. What a nice compliment. Yeah, well, I mean, I just do astrology all the time. It's my
Hmm.
language, and one thing about studying a lot of these people is you get better because you start to see more relationships, I mean, between planets and so forth. So it's helpful, even though it's often really unsavory because I'll be, looking at Trump and both learning and feeling, a certain amount of anger at the way he
Hmm.
behaves. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really dispiriting, that the country has to live through this horrible behavior, that this man engages in.
Well, and it's like the same thing for me, not allowing the disgust and um, the strong feelings to make your readings biased against, because if you can definitely put your own energy into the readings, or if you're
Mhm.
throwing cards, read the cards how, with your bias. So it's kind of taking a step back and letting that go, so you can really evaluate the energy that you're picking up.
Yeah, true. That's totally true. Yeah, although I recall back in 2020, it was really comedic because I would get a lot of these Trumpers and others coming
Hmm.
on the channel and saying to me, "Oh, no one could take you seriously. You're obviously biased." And I would reply, "No, actually, that's not what's happening. What's happening is that it so happens that the party that I want to see win is going to win. And it
Hmm.
so happens that turns out the person I don't like is also going to lose. So that's just my good fortune this time around. But it could be that in a different scenario, might not be the case.
Hmm.
But with Trump,
Right.
I mean, it's been this train wreck for years. I mean, you can see it coming because he's the classic example of somebody that is just totally focused on what he does, but it's creating difficult karma. He's always, committing another crime, doing something else. And then more and more people are in the background that can turn against you because if you've got all these followers, all these helpers, sure, but not all of them are going to stay with you. Like Cassidy Hutchinson, she
Yeah.
mentions, I don't know if you've seen her on TV because she's selling her book, and she says, don't think of me as being such a hero because this other person who she was working with, Sarah, I can't remember her last name, but she quit on January 6th and immediately, right away, started saying this is unacceptable and turned against Trump on the spot. Cassidy took quite a while. She didn't really come out until the following year, in the middle of the year when the committee met, but she came out nonetheless. So, slowly drip, 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 more
Hmm.
people telling on him, more conversations coming out. And the collage is really bad. And that's, I mean, 91 felony indictments. I mean, I don't know.
Right.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine being under 91? It's ridiculous. It's just
Hmm.
ridiculous.
And I think what really upset her too is that I think Trump was paying for her lawyers,
Yes.
and they were really trying to pressure her um, to get her involved with it. And I think that that's when she kind of saw the light. Um, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, she's still a Republican, but at least um, you have her and a couple others that are willing to stand up for what's right. Maybe it wasn't, maybe it wasn't her intention to begin with, but um, there, I mean, like look at Liz Cheney. She didn't get reelected. Um, so it's really kind of going up against Trump and his base. And
Yeah.
I'll just say too, you were talking about Trump doing all these bad deeds and that karma. Can you just imagine if he was actually a force for good, all of the
Yeah.
all the things that he could manifest into his life, because he sure has that. He's able to kind of turn things around, isn't he?
Yeah,
To
no, for
bring
sure.
those
But
things in that he wants. But
it's curious. In astrology, there's this level where they're called harmonics. You can look at a chart and the obvious angles are, visible. You can almost eyeball it and see it. But to see these other things, you have to be able to count a little bit because there's special measurements that are not immediately apparent, right? So the fifth harmonic, which is the most creative around manifesting something that is uh, particularly appropriate for you. So it's a very human thing, but it's very individualistic. And so it can make for great artists, for example.
mhm,
But if it's misused, five is the pentagram. And when you flip the pentagram over, you get really evil energy. It's
mhm,
literally the day of demonic behavior. It turns out if you look at Hitler's chart, he's got this massive pentagram in his chart. I mean,
Oh,
it's
interesting.
scary. Yeah, and Trump has another one. Trump has another, not quite as interesting as Hitler's, because Hitler's links the entire chart together. But Trump has a part of his chart. It's got this fifth harmonic thing. So he tries to impose his view of the world, which is totally corrupt. He tries to impose it on the world. And of course, it's a terrible disservice, right? Because it's sort
Right.
of the idea that in his mind, what is true is what he thinks or what he feels, not what is actually true. So then, it goes from there, and it creates, all these ideas, visions that they're not true. They're true because he wants them to be true. So like for instance, the big lies like that. He's just saying,
Yeah.
no, it didn't happen that way. Never produces evidence. I mean, that's the part that for me is most dispiriting. How is it possible that there are millions of Americans who don't say, well, okay, well, where's this evidence? Why don't you show us? I mean, it's been, how long? 2 years? He says, there is
Right.
massive evidence. Where's the evidence? You remember he would say things like, government cameras captured everything. Which cameras? Where's the footage? So it's all made up stuff, but people are willing to go along. That's dispiriting because you always think, okay, if you're in court, if there's evidence, then you get convicted, but not if there's no evidence. I mean,
Mhm.
that's the logic. But here's the thing, though, he himself is in court, and he's facing a lot of evidence. It's a tough
Right.
time. It's like this guy Menendez, right? He just got, he's a Democrat. I know, but just looking at what I'm reading, I'm thinking this doesn't look good because
Yeah.
if they do have the texts of you communicating with the people that you're supposed to be committing crimes with, and they have the $500,000 in cash and the gold bars and the receipts for the Mercedes, I think you have a big problem.
Hmm.
It's evidence, right? So yeah, I mean, everyone keeps saying, "Are we ever going to get back to an evidence-based reality of some kind?" What's your feeling? How do you see the upcoming? If you look a little ahead, a year, 2 years, how does it feel to you?
Um, well, I do feel, and maybe it's more like around 2026. It's kind of like this transition period. So a couple years still. Um, I, I do see us kind of getting more grounded and stable with reality rather than, all of this illusion, delusion, cult stuff going on with Trump and the Republicans. I do feel like, a lot is being exposed right now. And I think that that's what is really meant to, with all of this hardship that we've been facing all these years, it's really to bring that awareness so that we can kind of make the future for ourselves that we need to make. So it's kind of exposing all the things that have been hidden and corrupt in our system for so long. So it's really the year of accountability. And yeah, it doesn't really matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican. If there's corruption there, I feel like a spotlight being shown on it. But so yeah, it does feel like as Trump starts to go down, I feel like him taking the party down with him. You're going to have some of the radicals out there for a while, but I do feel like over some time they kind of go back into the cave that they were hiding in before Trump made all this hatred okay. You know?
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. It makes sense. I mean, that's the thing where, again, it's you kind of look at it and you think, will this ever end? But in some ways, these forces are part of the American experiment. If you look at the American chart,
Mm,
there is this tension all the time, and that might be part of the reason the country's so creative in a way. It's just that such a horrible price to pay to think that there's the Civil War, major battle over slavery. I mean, it's
right.
completely crazy. And then you see those cycles, they go halfway around, and then the Second World War, this place was just teeming with Nazis. I mean, it was horrible. From what I read, the only reason it all came under control is the Japanese attack Pearl Harbor, America gets into the war, and then people like Lindbergh, who were advocating fascism, they get pushed to the background, and we're back here again. It's almost like you push them back, and then they resurface years and years later. This
Yeah.
sense of, there should be some kind of right wing, fascist approach to the country. But
Well, it's kind of
thankfully,
that karmic cycle kind of repeating itself over
it
and
is.
over until we get that lesson. and then we
Yeah.
can kind of cut that cord and move on to, and onto all the other stuff we're meant to learn, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. And I mean, the only, uh, I would say the part that I feel a little bit, I'm not worried is too strong.
Mm,
It's just the sense that you get this feeling it may not sort itself out completely because if you look at the history in the Civil War, what ended up happening is that there was, the North won, the South had to stop doing what they were doing, but then there was Reconstruction, and it took a long time for it to be implemented, and it was because the elections were really close. There was apparently one election that was really close, and so they cut a bargain, to kind of keep going, and they let the South continue with their horrible ways. So then instead of taking, should have been done then we were arguing about it recently. I mean, even recently they were saying, okay, we got to take down those statues, of all those racists or whatever. So that's much, much later than it should be. And I worry now, in the sense, here I use the word worry again, if the election is really close, which I suspect it might be. What's your sense of that, the election that is coming up in 24?
Um, I mean, presidential elections are always close, right?
That's true.
Especially like recently. Um, but what I see is, with the Republican Party, I feel before the election, Trump may get the nomination and a health challenge happens like next summer or legal challenges. I don't see him on the ticket towards the voting.
Oh, that's cool. Really? So you,
It's
you
kind of
feel,
my prediction now. It's a little foggy because we have so many things kind of turning with it, but
mm,
um, I feel like that's most likely where the energy is now.
mm,
Um, so like in that meantime, Trump's going down. He's taking the Republican Party with him. We're already kind of seeing that fracture with the MAGA and a lot of the more moderate Republicans that just want to get away from all of this extremism because they're losing elections.
mm.
So I feel like with all the legal cases, we're going to have some January 6th coming up with removing some people from Congress. The Republican Party is going to have a stench to it come November of next year.
But you have a sense that Trump doesn't even make it to like he's not the nominee.
I don't see it.
Hmm.
I think he may get the nominee and then something happens and he's not on the ticket in November.
Well, that's fascinating because right now the only thing I can think of that would stop him is the health angles that he has in his chart
Mm-hmm.
because they are quite threatening. Even though so far, yeah, you see days when he seems particularly out to lunch and he's slurring his words and saying things
Right.
like Trump, Biden's going to take us into World War II.
Oh, you mean, yeah. And then talking about running against, what was he saying? He was running against Bush.
Yeah, he said that he had defeated Bush and that he also had beaten Obama. He's got his mind is obviously all over the place. But the thing is, the way this is going, I it's hard to conceive of an angle where, for example, I don't know, say this thing keeps going, and then as the trials start to happen, the Republican voters decide to vote for who? Ramaswamy, or like who are they going to pick?
Exactly.
It just looks really strange. So,
There's nobody else that can bring all those voters in.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, exactly. So it would have to be some other thing that would stop him and
but
from
can you imagine if Trump was taken off? Like, let's say he got the primary, and something legal happens, or you know, I'm not wishing it, but there's a health episode or challenge or whatever. Can you imagine how mad that extremist part of the base is going to be if he got pulled and they replaced him with somebody else?
yeah, they're going to be furious.
They're not going to vote.
I know.
So,
Well, but like I always like to say, it couldn't happen to a nicer group of people, right?
right.
I mean,
Any well, we do have the debates coming up tonight. I don't plan on watching it. I can think of a million other things I'd rather do than spend my time watching that clown show. But what are you picking up, like with like maybe somebody behind Trump, like the next front runner? Do you feel like it might be DeSantis, or do you feel him crumbling? And
You know that
um,
it's such a mystery to me. I know that Kim had said a long time ago that she felt it would be a more moderate personality,
okay,
someone like Pence potentially, or someone like Youngkin from Virginia or someplace like that. I just right now I have zero sense of who that could be because
yeah,
there's no one in that group. DeSantis is just not a good politician. The
he's
man,
going down, and
and
I
he
think
has.
he's going to have um, another lackluster performance tonight. I do feel like he tries to get his moment, and maybe the other contenders start taking him down so that they can get that second place position.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. Who else? Chris Christie is the one telling the truth, but I don't think Chris Christie has the support. And by the way, I'd say Chris Christie is their best guy of this group.
Oh, I agree.
And in fact, when you look at the totality, and if you said to me, "Oh my God, they're going to win and Chris Christie will be president," he's the least worrisome to me because yes, he's Republican. Of course, I would rather have almost anyone than that, but he scares me the least. It's a little bit like how we were all against Mitt Romney in 2012, and Mitt Romney looks he looks like a statement
Yeah,
star.
right.
He looks totally normal, and so Chris Christie the least. But I would be beyond amazed how that would happen because
I don't
you
see
know,
it.
yeah, the MAGA people hate him.
Well, and you have to think, if 60%, 70% of the Republican Party views Trump favorably, they're not going to go against somebody that is attacking him and so vocal about it.
Right?
Most of the Republican Party is not ready to step away from Trump, is what I'm feeling right now.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
I think the biggest threat would be if Glenn Youngkin jumped in. Um, and I feel like there's pressure on him to jump in, but I was almost getting the feeling like he doesn't feel like it's the right time right now, but I could see like 2028, him possibly getting a nomination.
Yeah, well, because I mean, if you think about it, in this environment, if you jump in with all those MAGA people against an incumbent president,
You're
whatever
destroying your
people will.
career.
Yeah, because you go in and then you lose and then it's pinned on you and it's not because
Hmm.
you're that bad, it's just because you jumped in at the wrong time. So that's why a lot of these people like that Sununu character, he doesn't want to jump in because he's scared
Yeah.
that it's not going to work out. So it's a bit of a mystery. We probably have to wait to see what develops in the new year, especially as the trial starts, because
Right.
that's going to be quite a zoo. And you see that in the astrology that we're moving toward, like right now, Saturn will station in November and then it goes forward direct and stations in June next year. But once you're moving toward a station, it kind of takes May in and June, July, the whole period. Saturn is very strong, and it's in a very difficult spot for Trump. So that cannot be
Uh-huh.
an easy period for him at all.
Right. And
And
well, that
what?
would be around the same time the nomination would
Right. Well,
begin.
that's a good
So,
point. Yeah, that's a good
mhm.
point. So it kind of makes you wonder, where this is going to go. But the other thing is Christie and DeSantis. Uh, they're both connected to. I think they're both Virgos, or they're in the Virgo, Gemini, Sagittarius, Pisces, like quadruplicity. So
Okay.
so uh, Jupiter in Gemini, Saturn in Virgo, where they'll be next year, it's not favorable. When you're for Virgo, once you get into the middle of the year, it's a hard slog because right now it's okay. Jupiter in Taurus is helpful to Virgo, but Jupiter in Gemini much less so, and Saturn is already opposite, so it's not a good plan.
Mm.
It's why it makes DeSantis chances, weak, low.
I see him going down.
Yeah.
I see him continuing to drop. I would actually be. I think he'll stay in there for a little bit, but with the way I don't think he's getting funding or donations that he needs,
Mhm.
he could maybe drop out of Iowa after Iowa is what I'm kind of feeling, if not before. Um, and then when it goes to Pence, I don't see a lot of these Trump supporters going and supporting Pence after January 6th. It's not something that I'm really to say ready, like set in stone, because the energy is it still feels kind of murky to me. I did have a weird feeling when Tim Scott announced that he was going to run, but I don't see the Republican Party nominating a black man. But if something happened to Trump and they're scrambling to put somebody in there, they might think that that would be a good option. And of course, some of the African American vote. Not, it wouldn't be successful, but
Yeah, no, I know that's the thing, that my sense of this is that it goes Democratic in 24. It's just that because of the echoes, the planets are very closely in the same area as during the Civil War. That has to give you pause, right? That
right,
minimum, the country's not going to be happy with the
right,
result, which means many millions. But I don't know what to say about that. As long as the millions that have, that are on the decent side win, we'll just have to live through the rest as well as we
yeah.
possibly can, and tough it out. There might even be
It's going to
some
be a bit
violence.
crazy. I feel like how it is now, even after the next election. It's going to take a while to kind of calm down the Republican Party, and we are so divided right now. Everything's so polarized. Um, it's going to take some time to really kind of get everybody on the same page. But I do feel like, as polarized as things are now, maybe even a little bit before the next election, some bipartisanship and energy towards that. Because as the Republican Party rebuilds, they're not going to be able to have these extremist views anymore. They're going to have to start coming around on climate change issues and really start to come into the middle. And I think as a result, we'll actually start seeing some bipartisanship. They can't win elections with all this extremism or telling women what they can do with their body, or, we have a lot of young people coming out to vote, and they're not going to be for that.
Yeah, no, I mean, in the longer pattern, there's no doubt. The shorter is a little scary because
Yes,
they they're basically a minority party now. They don't have the votes to win with majorities. So then they try to win through the electoral college, even though they'll lose the popular vote. And there's also the issue that they do everything possible to try to siphon out votes from Biden. So this whole thing, I don't know if you looked into it. I looked into it yesterday and I was kind of stunned. I was listening to Rick Wilson explain. Rick Wilson is an ex-Republican who I wish they would hire to run their. I wish the Dems would hire him to be their
strategist.
communications person. Yeah,
Yeah,
because he knows exactly what to do. And he was saying that this whole thing with no labels is a total scam. No labels is nothing other than a Republican-funded effort to pretend that they're centrist and reasonable, and they know they're not going to win. But if they siphon off 3-4%, then they can really hurt Biden. So
right.
Democrats have to be aware that they're throwing away a vote if they vote for those guys. So this tells you that they stop at nothing to try to win as a minority party, because it's no longer about being the dominant party and having more votes and winning.
Right.
Yeah.
They get more desperate and have to scheme to win. Or you see it like all of these Democrats that are switching from parties to Republican now. Um, they were kind of put in there and played the part of a Democrat to change and to work for the other side. So
Yeah,
um,
yeah, that's really interesting. That is and that happened I think there was a woman that did
a
that.
couple, I've heard of a couple of cases where there, um, a woman in North Carolina, I think. I've
Yeah,
heard
yeah,
somebody else is doing it. You have well, maybe they weren't put in as Republicans, but I mean, you have like Manchin and Cinema, who are definitely getting money from the GOP, I think, to kind of obstruct things. So
yeah, yeah. No, it's a crazy period. So, what other things are you tuning into that you want to bring up in any area? And feel free, even if it's
mhm.
completely unrelated, that you think is important.
It's just so chaotic right now. There's so much going on, right?
I
Hard
know.
to focus on just one thing, or even stay focused on everything that has happened and that's going on. Um, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but I just really see it being a circus in the House.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. That's like an ongoing. I mean, the only thing is, you notice that it was every day the main line, the main news, and then this thing with Trump came up where they convicted him, in the civil case where the judge said,
Oh yeah.
"Hey, enough," and that's just more of the Trump world, and there'll be more. It'll continue.
Hmm.
His chart is just, you know,
Well, it's not stopping anytime soon with all the lawsuits. January 6th is going to be huge, and it implicates so many people. Um, so it's, you have issues with the Supreme Court and taking dark money. Um, it's just like it's so much coming out. I know a lot of people are worried because of these polls that I think are kind of skewed, and um, a lot of them paid for by Republicans. But we still have a year away before, over a year away before 2024. So I'm telling
mm.
you, with everything happening, people are really going to be turned off by Republicans when they go to vote.
Yeah, and the polls. I think that what people have to remember is that the only polls that matter are I think there are 11 or 12, maybe 13. It's
Hmm.
a limited number of states that are
Right.
battleground states. Of those, some like Texas is sort of a battleground, and Florida, Ohio, but then there are some that are very tight, Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. That's really all that you have to focus on, because if the numbers are clear there, it doesn't matter what the national poll says, because national polls, Hillary won the national poll, but she lost
Right.
the electoral college, right? So this is where you can go online and find sites that show you what's happening in the state polls, and then that tells you. And then what you said, that not till the election year, because I mean, think about it. In 2007, at this stage, Rudy Giuliani was the Republican leader. He was going to be going
Mm,
against Hillary Clinton,
right.
and
Now
then
it's
it was
changed.
times changed. But by the end, he had like negative one type approval. I mean, he was nothing then. So yeah, I mean, things could change. It seems a little more implausible because of the way Trump keeps these people mesmerized and leading the way he is. But even so, things could
But
really
there's a good
change.
fraction of the Republican Party that is more in the middle that is really turned off by Trump. And if you think of it this way too, um, sure, you have like the third party contest, and like you were saying, their goal is to kind of siphon off votes from Biden. I feel like it could actually backfire and siphon off votes from the Republicans too, with
Oh, it
everything going
can.
on with Trump
Yeah.
and all of that. But what was my point? I just lost it. um,
Yeah. That we're. I
Shoot.
mean,
I don't know.
that
I
we're,
guess it's not been important.
the chaotic. It's the chaotic. The chaotic nature of the situation can totally throw your. Can throw your
Right?
throws your
Um,
intuitions off. Yeah, I know.
yeah, I mean, it's, but my point was going to be is after January 6th, I think if anything, more Republicans, um, I think it turned off more Republicans than these new ones to get excited about Trump. So I don't see Trump really winning any more voters than the last time. I mean, you kind of run into the issue that a lot of people are not necessarily enthusiastic to vote for Biden, and you hear about his age, and I feel like there is some merit to that, um, but I mean that you just have crazy on the other side, and comparing it to um, that I don't see it being an issue for Biden come next year.
Yeah, no, and then the thing with Biden, I mean, it's so unfair because he's been the most effective president in maybe ever. I mean, it's ridiculous. What
Hmm.
he's
Yeah.
accomplished is phenomenal. And anytime there is a situation where something important happens, he seems to outfox the other side. So if he's so sleepy
Hmm.
and dopey and, in cognitive decline, why is it that he always pretty much accomplishes what he sets out to do? And the other thing is that he's running on a ticket. So unless now you're going to tell me that you are so, afraid if Kamala Harris were to become president, I'm
Right.
not. To me,
Right.
Kamala Harris is a prosecutor with a really good mind. I have no worries there. I think she would be perfectly fine. So, why are you worried about his age? And what about Trump? Is he that
Hmm.
much younger? I mean, last time I heard him, he was talking,
Exactly.
spouting nonsense and forgetting his words. And if anything, he's the one that seems to be going into dementia from the way he behaves.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I agree with you on that. With the dementia part. I mean, we're already starting to see it, but I feel like even when he was president, um, there were some signs coming in. Yeah, I agree with you, and I don't feel Biden's gotten a lot of. He doesn't get the press that he should because of all of his accomplishments. It's the news is very much wants to make these polls look so like neck and neck because they like to play on people's fear responses to get you to watch more of the news and stay and watch the news all day. It's all about their ratings. So
yeah,
um,
yeah. No, that's totally true. Yeah, you're talking, of course, about now you're talking about the mainstream news, the
yeah,
regular news, right? Because they tend to go out of their way to be extra, fair.
negative and
Yeah,
yeah,
and it's like back in 2016, Trump was just saying the most outrageous things, the most unbelievable garbage, and they were focusing on Hillary's emails like that meant anything. I
mhm,
mean, I hope they've learned. I mean, look at the way Trump treats classified information.
yeah,
Joke. He was saying, "Oh, she should be people that take the fifth. This means they're criminal, right? Okay, and classified information. If you do that, you're not fit to be president." Or when he said, "If you are under indictment, you should never even run because." Really? Okay, so 91 for you. I mean, it's the
I like how he
hypocrisy.
made the classified document. I think he imposed more um, like not sanctions, but like more jail time with it, like the penalties.
Mhm.
And then look what he does to himself here. So
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, he went out
hilarious.
of his way to pass. Yeah, that's right. He passed legislation making it more of a crime, right?
Yeah.
But I
And
mean,
I'll just
yeah,
say so too that going into Biden not getting the credit that he deserves, you know, I'm definitely a Democrat. But the one thing that frustrates me with the Democratic Party is they are not a good um they don't prop themselves up like they need to, or um, you know, you need to play a little bit of fire with this crazy party. They don't really call it out. That's definitely one of their weaknesses is um, you know, promoting themselves as a party.
yeah. No, I think that you're totally right, and that's why I said their best move would be to hire messengers that understand the Republican
Hmm.
playbook better because they tend to, soften it. And I mean, these guys give you so much material to work with, the
Mm.
Republicans, that if you just went, in fact, I would flood the zone with Trump's cognitive problems. Just keep
Yeah,
bringing it up and say, look at this, look at this. I mean, he thinks we're going into World War II. What next? I mean, he is not all there. He's not. It's a
yeah,
fact, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's maybe he's in between cycles in his drug use because there's all these rumors that he uses Adderall,
Adderall,
whatever it
yeah,
is. There are times when you see him and he's really lucid, and then there are times when he's doing a rally or a talk and he's just not all there. He goes off on some tangent and he forgets what he's saying, and then he brings up Obama and this and that and totally unrelated stuff, which is, usually
it's
that's
just
cognitive.
grifting to get his base upset. Not to say that even when he's lucid that he can speak in full sentences.
Yeah,
Or
yeah. Although,
creating full sentences. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
yeah, and I was talking with my one of my sisters earlier on about this the technique that it's used in hypnosis, that when you're trying to mesmerize someone in some way, the Trump method of you keep saying it's almost like word salad. So your message doesn't make any sense, but in a sense you put the person in a trance, and particularly
Mm.
when the person listening to you is already they like you already or they feel an attraction toward you, they're gonna forgive your the message being totally off, and it actually makes them like you more. Now, if a person is awake, I find that I listen to them and right away I think, oh, that's just garbage. That's garbage. That's
Right,
invented.
right.
But you have to be reasonably awake, to spot those things. So anyway, it's remarkable. It's unbelievable that a country like the U.S. has to live through this kind of shameful
Yeah,
period. But
that's how you learn though, and that's how you grow.
that's
I
true.
always tell people, the hardest things that we go through are those or those experiences that can either make you or break you. You can allow it to bring you down energetically and sit in that fear, or allow it to get you angry, or you can use that as motivation to speak truth to power and to demand those changes. And that's really what Trump is doing. It's a test to our democracy, but yeah, we kind of have to learn the hard way to make those necessary changes and regulations that are needed. And I think a lot of people really got it with COVID, because COVID was that standstill moment where we all had on around us. We couldn't distract ourselves anymore. So it's all about that awareness and making that shift.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's true. I mean, it is true what you say, though, that I know in the personal realm, for sure, that how they in the Chinese culture they say a crisis is really an opportunity. The symbol is the
Mm-hmm.
same, so you get really
Not
confronted.
easy, but yeah.
Yeah, and you can, and that's the thing. And if you understand that, then it can actually be of great benefit because you can go to the next level. It's just that when it comes to a country, a country, even if it makes a decision of some kind, a decision is made, it's like the Titanic, it moves
Mm,
really slow, you gotta move the ship over. So it's like this thing that happened with women's rights. I see that being restored, but it takes a number of years.
yeah.
Was it 22? It might be 2026, or it could be a while before that's straightened out. But nevertheless,
But,
that's the direction that it's going.
but and that's the thing that really doesn't worry me with Biden and the Democrats is, you keep pissing people off. You you tell women what they can do, what they can't do with their bodies. You make hateful rhetoric speeches against race or LGBTQ, or you're just hateful, and you're really motivating people to go and vote you out of office. Where people before would be like, yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that. We're making these radical decisions, and people are upset, and people are going to be motivated out to the polls. All these young people, all these women, they'll be coming out in droves in 2024. How many special elections have we had um, since Biden's been in there? And they've, since like Roe v. Wade was um, overturned, they've been going really handily to Democrats, even
That's
with the party in
yes,
power. So,
that's the point. That actually is a really good point because when people brought up those polls are not even close to as meaningful as the fact that not only are the special elections going mostly Democratic, they're constantly overperforming. They're
hmm
producing more votes. This is the mood of the public. You're already seeing it before the general election, and it was happening back in 2020 as well. You could see the upsurge coming in.
yeah,
And the same thing is happening now. And not only is it happening, it's happening everywhere. Because I saw this thing where the person presenting it was saying, it's not just in California or blue states. It's happening in Tennessee, everywhere. Either
yeah.
Democrats are winning by more than they're supposed to, or Republicans are winning by less than they're supposed to, because voters are pushing back against them. So yeah, that's to me, that is what I call a real poll, because it's an actual voting behavior, right? Which means,
hmm
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I agree with you 100%. That's the better way to assess it than to say someone took a poll, especially if it's Rasmussen, one of those polls where
Right, right.
it feels like they went into
Conservative
some,
funded polls.
yeah, it feels like they went into some rural town in Pennsylvania and they asked, who do you want to vote for? And so of course you get a lot of Trumpers. So what do you recommend when you're doing the work that you do? Do you talk about spiritual practices or any kind of uh, techniques, methods, advice? What kind of thing do you do on that level for you?
Um, I mean, definitely during private readings, um, I I have a lot of people that ask about spiritual topics. I've done some shows with other people in the community and focus more so on spiritual questions. Typically, I do the politics on my channel,
Hmm.
um, or current events. Sometimes I do some personals, I am thinking, I'm a Reiki master as well. I'm thinking on Friday this week, I might be doing a little healing and prayer circles. So, yeah, I mean, I'm open to everything. It just seems like a lot of people are into the politics right now because, everything's so ungrounded and unstable.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's pretty much. I actually, it's almost exactly the way I approach it as well. Because when I do my personal consultations,
Hmm.
I take that approach a lot more than I don't read a person's chart the way I read Trump's chart. But well, of course, that's like talking in circles because someone like Trump would never approach me.
Right?
I mean, what would I say if I had to talk to him? I'd say, I see trouble. Because so much of it is the context, right? When you're looking at a chart, so much depends on what a person is doing with those energies. Because you said earlier, heard you say that, imagine what he could do if he were a decent person. And, that's that,
Hmm.
that's that paradox where you can get, charts are such that person is born and right down the street from them, another person could be born with a very similar chart because the city is the same, the time is the same, so they have similar charts, but they're not going to do the same things. And that's where you get
Right.
into the genetics, the all the causes and conditions that brought that person into incarnation brings them into certain actions. And this is where, in astrology, for example, a house that is like the 12th in astrology is very spiritual, but it's also where prisons are, prisons and monasteries. I don't know which way you're going. It depends on what you're
Right.
doing with your life. And I'm pretty sure I know where Trump is going, more likely at least. He's not, I'm not aware of him using the 12th house to run spiritual retreats. That's not happening there.
Right.
What's happening is that he's using it to commit crimes. So then that's why you get those results, right? But the logic would be that with that chart, actually, amazingly, yes, Trump's chart in the for someone that would be normal in quotes could be a high achieving spiritual teacher. Can you believe that? Because it's so opposite to the way he behaves, right?
Well, and I can kind of see it because he's kind of a cult leader right now too. So it's kind of like that following that you get of supporters, you know?
Yeah, yeah, no, exactly. Because he's using it, but he's using it a malevolent way.
Right.
Jim Jones, Reverend Moon, these people that they get in there and they're doing things for themselves, but they tell you that it's for some greater purpose. Like he says, they're not trying to indict me, they're trying to indict you. No, they're
Yeah.
not. They're indicting
The
you, Donald.
deflection. Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty.
Well, and I think too, like, and I'm sure like when you're doing clients charts, sometimes you do pick up on not so good things going on. I mean, it can't always be great, but then um, it's like, how do we deal with this? How can we try to shift the energy so it's not as bad? Or like you were saying, trying to stay uplifted and all that and staying in that positive to kind of manifest that kind of energy rather than allow, you know, not to be careful and do corrupt things or do maybe not so good things and then allow it to really hinder you at that point. It's kind of the same. You give the news of where the energy feels like it's most likely to go, but um, I think how you react to it or maybe things that you can do can change that outcome. So it's not hitting you quite as hard or you're not getting such bad news.
Yeah, I know exactly. Yeah, because there you go to just the sense of when something is happening, how does it impact you? Do you get angry? Do you panic?
Hmm.
What is it? What exactly happens? And
Yeah, the energy that you're sitting in, it attracts the like energy. So, if we're going to allow everything scary going on right now to really bring us down energetically, we're just bringing more things in for us to be fearful of or angry about. I mean, you can still keep that faith even when times are trying and use that anger in a positive way to fight for what you believe in and speaking your truth. So it's all how you perceive things and the energy that you're sitting in.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, that's exactly it. Which I mean that goes in a way to a level that can transcend the chart or transcend everything. If a person's sense of themselves, their connection to their true self is strong, that overcomes pretty much all obstacles, because that's in a way that the place of intuition too, where you intuit what to do next. In a way that you're logically doing it too, but it's beyond logic. It's just spontaneous, to take a certain action and do it in a good way. But it's also true that, yeah, when you're surrounded by tension and by all this discord, it can make things more difficult. Because, I mean, think of all these. Now, this is the thing, though, why people have to learn to vote, because think of all these young women that, grew up with what they thought were their rights, and then they just get pulled away. And
You don't know what you have until it's gone.
until it's gone, yeah. So the thing is, no matter what you're doing personally, if you're not careful about your where you live, things can happen that can alter your lifestyle, in major ways. So it's super important to be on it and to show up.
Yeah.
So any last words on anything that you want to bring up on the political situation or anything else?
Well, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of changes. Like I said, chaos. I do feel like at some point it feels maybe towards the end of this year, beginning of next year, a lot of dark money channels and corruption being exposed, and we're already kind of seeing that now with Menendez, but a lot of Republicans being sucked up in it too. But can I just say what really frustrates me is all of the blatant corruption and within the Republican Party. But it's like, it's so slow for them. But we have a couple on the Democratic side, and it seems like they get hit up before before these Republicans do. I don't know. It's a little frustrating.
Yeah, well, I mean, sometimes the way I comfort myself is that I'll think what you just said. It's totally true, because you think, okay, so you get I mean, Trump is now a convicted rapist, literally, and then they throw Al Franken out of the Senate for patting a woman
Right.
behind, right? Or now they're going after Menendez, and look at all the just blatant corruption everywhere. George Santos, he's still in there, no one's
Right.
throwing him
Right.
out. Right. So it's true. There's no question. And then you think, well, the voters don't know. But often they do know, because, I mean, by your own argument, right? You see all these races, people are clearly saying, we don't like this MAGA stuff, so we're voting Democrat, right? So maybe we're thinking no one is paying attention, but there may be lots of people, they say that in the suburbs, especially of all these cities, that are turning away from Republicans and voting Democrat because they see the corruption. And they might be able to see, yeah, this is kind of unfair. This Menendez guy, it's true, his situation doesn't look good because
Right.
he's done some,
Well,
you know,
and if you do something wrong, you should be held accountable.
Yeah, right.
Regardless of what side you're on. So there's
Right. Right.
your
But
actions, but it's frustrating when there's a lot more on one side, and sure, we've seen some indictments, but I don't know. We'll get that sense of justice here soon. It's frustrating being patient and waiting for it to happen, but it's coming.
it's like that, though. I always say this, so many times, that because I like watching, if I watch crime shows and I can get dates, I learn the astrology. I can tell when the planets are moving and, why someone gets convicted and all that. And I notice that the legal system is glacially slow, even for normal people, because if you pay attention to what they're telling you, there'll be these really weird things where they'll say, there's this person and they got all this evidence. I mean, they've got the person dead to rights. They're going into the slammer for sure. And then they say, 18 months later, they went to trial. So you think, wait a second, what do you mean 18 months later? What were you doing for 18 months? That should have been next week, next month at the latest, right?
Yeah.
Next day, really, if you think of the seriousness. It takes a long time. Lawyers file motions, and that's one of the things that people really get used to that. Trump just got, hit really hard in New York. He's going to appeal that. He'll appeal the appeal. He'll take it to the Supreme Court. He's not going to stop until it could be years before all of that gets implemented, right? So that's part of the problem, because you think, okay, he just got hit, doesn't mean that much, right? Including next year, if he's convicted by, say, in the Jack Smith trial, he can immediately file an appeal. So he's convicted, you can use that against him in ads and things like that, but he's still a free man. And though normally person like that would be put in jail waiting to see what would happen
Exactly.
next. Not with this guy, you know. I mean, I'd be amazed if they did that. So that's what you're talking about, the patience we need, you know, to wait and wait and wait for resolutions. But
Well,
eventually they come.
and it's also too, I see them kind of treading carefully just because you have one side that's so angry and like
Hmm.
you were saying, it's kind of like civil war vibes. And so we want to make sure all the evidence is there and it's ironclad so that, you know, we don't have millions of Trump supporters trying to do another January 6th or succeed. You know what I mean? I don't see that happening, but
No,
yeah, you have
no.
to be a little bit careful with it too.
What would be so great is if I don't think it'll happen. I don't know if you get any feeling about this, but it would be great if they would televise the Jack Smith trial. But federal court, you actually have to make an exception to televise it. Whereas in Georgia, they're going to televise that because that's their rule, which means we're going to be seeing some really interesting stuff already later in October when Cheesebro and the Kraken lady are
Yeah,
tried because they're going to have to present a lot of that. So we'll see it in court. But to me, the other case, it would be great if the public saw it because you're guaranteed that they'll bring in all the evidence and Trump will say that it was something else. He'll just lie because he always lies. And so will the Republicans. So then he can say, oh, I presented the evidence, but they didn't listen to me. And, you know, they didn't, there, it's a ripoff. It's rigged. And that's why I was convicted before you
right.
saw it.
And you know, at least I feel like at least one of them going to be televised. You know, unfortunately, I feel a push against it, but I wasn't seeing um, the January 6th being televised because I think it would have to. I think the Supreme Court would have to approve that, and they would have to outreach that. And yeah, we should because it's such a pivotal time in our country and a dangerous time too. So you know, we should be showing the history kind of going on with this coup attempt, but um, I wasn't feeling that. But I do feel like while it might not be televised, I do feel like there might be extensions to reporters being in there. Maybe like some audio is kind of what I'm feeling. I'm not feeling video, but maybe some audio recordings of what's going on being played. So it feels like there's something, but um,
It's such a shame.
not
It's such a
nearly
shame.
enough. Yeah,
You know, because if you think about it, we live in an era where you can do, you know, 4K resolution of something, and then it goes into the history books. That's what happened, you know, because a lot of these guys that are like Trump, they don't want you to see the actual situation. They want you to see what he wants you to see. But
exactly.
if you had the event, then you say, well, make up your own mind. There it is. That's what happened, you know. And so it's kind of bad that then it's open to interpretation when it shouldn't be because
Yeah.
it should just be, you know.
Well, and I think if it was up to Judge Chutkin, it would definitely be televised. But like I said, I think the Supreme Court has to go on board with that.
Yeah, and the Supreme Court is teeming with conservative judges, so
Yeah,
that's probably.
maybe we'll get lucky. I feel Clarence Thomas leaving sooner rather than later, but
Oh, that's cool. Really, you feel that?
I do.
Huh?
Things are going to get a bit crazy. We're going to even McConnell might. I feel like will probably be up before the next election. Um,
Yeah,
it's just crazy. You know, I feel like they're going to have a hard time. Who else do they have if they go and take Kevin McCarthy out as speaker? Who else can they really get in there to get the votes? The moderate side's not going to vote for Jim Jordan to be speaker. You're not going to have those people voting for that. So you need somebody in the middle with bipartisanship in the House. You know, you have a minority leader in the Senate more than likely being replaced. It's going to be crazy.
yeah, I agree. I
Very
agree with
unstable
you.
for the Republican Party.
Yeah, that's where actually McConnell has the same uh, pattern as McCarthy, MTG, and Matt Gaetz. It's not good between now and next
Interesting.
spring. Yeah, they're all suffering for different reasons, but McConnell's problem is that he's experienced health events already. He really shouldn't even be working. If he were smart, he would want to take a sabbatical for a few months. But in that industry, nobody can. It's you got to be in there all the time. But he shouldn't be because he's risking another event, you know,
Hmm.
before the new year.
Yeah. Not hoping or putting that out there, but yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you, and I look forward to the next time we meet.
Yes, sounds good.
Which
Thank you
I,
for inviting me on here, Andre. It's good to be on your channel. And if anybody's watching and you're not subscribed to my channel, my YouTube name's Kevin's Loving Vibration. So please come subscribe. Getting close to 9,000 subscribers, which is my next big goal. So I would appreciate any help getting me to that goal. So
excellent. Yeah, I'll put all your information in the video description as well, so they can see the channel and where to find you. All
all
right,
right, Andre.
that was
It was
great. I'm
fun.
sure
Thank you.
by the time we talk again, I'm sure there'll be lots
So
of
much more.
lots
We
of.
won't even be remembering what's going on now
I
because
know.
I feel like I have a hard time remembering what happened yesterday because it's just continuous news.
It's true. It's true. It's 100% true. All right. Till next time. Bye, everybody.
Hi, everyone.